Good morning or good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the InduSoft webinar, Stump the Expert, the last webinar of the series for this year. And I want to start pretty much thanking each one of you for all your support throughout the whole year, throughout the whole InduSoft history. Thanks to you, InduSoft keeps growing, keeps evolving. We came with several innovations this year. SMA evolved a lot. We have by far the leading edge on thin clients in the industry based on HTML5 now with SMA thin client. We are very excited as well with IoT View, the runtime version for non-Windows platforms, for Linux, VxWorks, different platforms. So InduSoft is really growing, and thanks to you and along with you. So again, I'd like to thank you for all your support and help this year, and look forward to keep working with you with win-win partnership in 2016. And for everyone that is watching the video live, a special thanks for taking the time to watch a webinar in what's the last business day for most of us this year. So thank you again for your always very, very kind support. As you know, in this webinar, we do not have an agenda. It jumps directly to Q&A. Is an open section, and any specific questions that you may have about the product, applications, please feel free to write them in the Q&A box or in the chat box. You can access those dialogues through the webinar bar on the top of your monitor. Just move the mouse over the top of your monitor, click either on chat or expand the toolbar to the right, and you have the Q&A box. And just write your questions there, and I'll do my best to answer your questions and even demonstrate how to implement different interfaces with the product based on your questions. So give a few seconds here for the first questions to come in, and I will answer them as they are posted. So the first one there is, what about how to how to avoid alarm debouncing based on variables that are changing all the time. So as you know, in InduSoft Web Studio, you have the alarm task, and you can configure alarm conditions. Like, for instance, if this tag is higher than this value, then trigger this alarm. The problem that we have with some analog variables is the value could be fluctuating around the limit. So it could be 95.1, 94.0, 94.9, 95.1, 94.9, pretty quickly, and you have several instances of the alarm being activated, normalized, activated, normalized. So there are two ways to avoid this problem, to filter those alarms. One is the deadband by value, but a more interesting and more efficient way to filter those alarms in those conditions is what we have in InduSoft as a time deadband for alarms. So in any worksheet, if you go to the advanced dialog, you have this deadband time in seconds to activation and normalization of alarms. So if you say, for example, 5 seconds for activation, and let's say 10 seconds for normalization, and could be any number of seconds you want. Then with this configuration, the tag must be in alarm condition and remain in alarm condition for at least 5 seconds, then the alarm is activated. Otherwise, if it goes to alarm condition and 1, 2, 3, or 4 seconds later comes down and outside the alarm condition, we ignore it. We do not even trigger the alarm. And same thing for normalization. If the alarm was in alarm condition for 5 seconds, we activated the alarm, and the alarm becomes active until it's no longer in alarm condition for at least 10 continuous seconds. So it's a very easy interface and a very easy way to filter alarms and avoid misleading alarms when variables are debouncing around the limit. So, good question. Another one is about the trend history. For how long can we keep the alarm history in the InduSoft Web Studio? Actually, we do not impose a limit. The physical limit is pretty much the memory, the storage memory available in your computer. So if you come here to the trend task, you define for each worksheet how many values are, which tags should be saved, how frequently they should be saved. You have the save on trigger and the save on tag change. And here in advanced, per worksheet, you have the disk space control and what we call history lifetime. So if you define here a number of days, for example, 30 days, all the history data older than 30 days is automatically deleted every day at midnight. So it's a FIFO, first in, first out, and we make sure that we do not have, the history doesn't keep growing continuously to a point that you end up without resources, without physical space in the computer. So it's very easy to manage, to control the history lifetime and make sure that you keep the history data for the periods that you actually need in the computer. If you leave in 0, which is the default, we never delete the old data. We keep adding, and you need to make sure that you have enough memory to keep adding for as long as the project lives, or you have an external way to manage those files and make sure you do not end up without space. But through this interface here, you can manage it directly from InduSoft Web Studio in a very easy manner. Very well. I have another question here. How to pull data from Matter Weather Center from their website. Use the XML tags to populate tags in InduSoft. And there is a website here. Wanting to write an application to retrieve temperature and humidity and calculate from dew point from typing a location zip code or city that Matter data would recognize. So pretty much it looks like the idea is to go to external web service and retrieve information about the weather based on a given address, and then show this information on the screen or somehow write this information to InduSoft tags. So let's see how we can do that with InduSoft Web Studio. The website that I received here in the question is this one, aviation.gov.ads/data center. So it looks like the website has an issue here. Let's go there. aviationweather.gov Edge Data Center. Let's see if some sort of compatibility with Edge. So I'll try it with Internet Explorer. The link that you use has taken to a location that has changed. So it looks like the link is not correct. Let me confirm again. Oh, data server. Sorry, my bad. Adds data server. Better. So in the question here, it's asking for matter. Seems to be this database here. And they have some examples by time, by, let's look for latitude and longitude. There you go. So this one seems that you pass a latitude and longitude, and based on that, it retrieves you a XML with all the values from different weather stations. It's a very typical way to retrieve weather information or any other information from web services. So pretty much what we have to do is, based on this example here, we have to pass this URL, passing here the latitude and longitude for what we want, for the location we want, and then retrieve this XML and retrieve from this XML what I believe you want is the temperature and the dew point. Retrieve those two values from the XML that we receive. So back in InduSoft, the first thing to do is to create a function to retrieve, well, let's start from the beginning. Given a URL, retrieve the information from a particular node. In this case here, the particular node is data num results, METAR, temp.c, for example. So let's go to InduSoft. I can create a brand new application. So webinar, morning, December 15, 2015. Very good. There you go. So let's come here and create a function that, given a URL in a path for this XML, returns the value from that particular XML. So let's create, for instance, get XML node value, and we pass the URL in the node path for this function. Then I need an object from Microsoft called XML DOM to manipulate browse information in the XML, a node object node to manipulate the information, and possibly a return value. Then I can set this object XML with this instruction create object, and the name of the object is Microsoft.xml.dom. So this is a Microsoft class that allows you to parse, to navigate through an XML schema, an XML file, or an XML stream from a URL. We usually set it to async. So when I load the information, I wait until the whole file or the whole stream is loaded before retrieving data from it. So I'll set the async to false to make sure it's synchronous. And then I call the load method from this object, passing the URL. So pretty much here I create the object. I tell the object to work in a synchronous manner, and here I load whatever URL I send in the argument. So if I pass, for example, this URL here to the function, it will load this XML schema in memory when I call this load function. So far, so good. Now I need to retrieve data from a particular node in this XML. In order to do that, I need to pass to the function the path for this node. For instance here, data matter dew point C, or data matter temp C, and so on and so forth. So that's the argument I'm passing here, the node path. So I'm going to create another object node, and I will use the original XML DOM object with the nodes document element select single node, where you can pass a node path, and this document element select single node returns the value from that path in the XML file. And that's all. Then I can get as return the value of the object node dot text. So the value of the object node, this single node, as a text. And I can make the function return the value of the variable ret return. So let's see if I did something wrong. No. So we can test this function here. Let's do a quick test here on the viewer. Create a button. When I click on this button, let's create a variable return here. This variable return, we'll call this function with a URL and a node path. So the URL for now, I'm going to hard code this example here from the website. In the node path, for this one, let's see, for this one, let's take that data matter temp underscore C. So data matter temp underscore C. And then I call the function, get the result, and message box the result. Let's save it as the main screen. Let's run, and let's see if it works. Minus 13.7, minus 13.7. If I want the dew point C, let's see if it works as well. So I just change here to dew point C and save it. Minus 15.9, minus 15.9. So this simple function here, just a few lines, allows you to query information, make a REST request from a web server without authentication, retrieve a value from an XML path, and then manipulate this value any way you want. Instead of showing a message box, I could have written the value of the variable ret to a tag and show on the screen, send to the PLC, whatever it is. So this is a simple but generic example of a function you can use to read data from web services using a REST command and manipulating the data retrieved in XML format. Now back to the specific question. It looks like you want to pass an address. And the problem with this URL is that you pass the location based on coordinates, longitude here and latitude. So we need a function to retrieve where I pass the address and I receive back the latitude and longitude. So Google is usually a good place to look for those services. So let's see, Maps, Google APIs, .com address. Let's take a look here. We have the output, and it looks like I can set address and pass the address. So let's make a quick example here in InduSoft. So function, let's say get latitude, longitude from address in function. Sorry. Now I can even reuse my function getXML node here to get the information I need. So let's change this one to get, in longitude. So let's do this. Let's create a variable latitude, a variable longitude, variable URL. So I can say latitude is equal to, well, first the URL. The URL is equal to http maps googleapis.com/maps. Let's confirm there. API geocode, XML. And then I pass the address equals to and concatenate whatever address I received in the function. So the latitude should be the value of getXML node value from this URL. And the node path for latitude, let's see if I use an example here. Address, let's put my zip code here. There you go. So it returns this. It looks here in geometry. So I have result, geometry, lat. So let's go there, then result, geometry, lat. And for now, let's make this function here return the latitude. And make a quick example here. So another button here. I'll call this function passing the address. So then address, and I'll make the address 78759, for example. And this function returns the latitude, and I want to message box the return from this function. Save it. See, something went wrong. Oh, object required OXML in the line 2. Get XML, values, get latitude from longitude. Let's create the object OXML here then. OXML and ONode. And set the URL to the correct address. Now I'll set this object, load. Set the object, load, and set this one to this path. And let's make here lat equals to onode dot text. Delete. It's not finding the latitude, so let's see what could be wrong. http maps google apis.com maps API geocode. Oh, there is a typo here. XML. Let's try again. There is another typo somewhere here. XML question mark address equals to an address. Let me trace the URL and enable the tracing here. We can see if the URL is correct. In geometry. Oh, and another thing. Geometry, location. I missed location here. Location, latitude. Let's try again. Now it works. 30.41. That's what I want. So I had two typos here, forgot location on the path, and here on the URL I had XMK instead of L. So now the URL is correct, and I can go back to my simpler original interface. Just copy this one. Now I can reuse it. Better. So much simpler. I'm reusing the function I had used before. So I have the latitude here, but I want the longitude as well. So I can call the same thing, but now return the longitude. And since I want to return both values, latitude and longitude, I can return the latitude, let's say, comma, and longitude. Return both values in a CSV, comma, separated value format. So I click here, I have the latitude and the longitude. So I have a function that, given the address, it returns the latitude and longitude. And I have a function that, given an XML and a path, returns the value for a node in that a node path in that XML. I think we just need the final function to answer your question, which is passing the address, retrieve the temperature and the dew point from this particular web service. So let's create another function here. The other two functions are, this one is completely generic. This one is generic for everywhere that you want to use the Google Maps web service to get coordinates based on one address. And now I create a function specifically for your question to get temperature, to get values from this particular aviation weather website. So get matter aviation weather, for example, and you want to pass us a address and let's say a variable name, temperature, C, dew point, whatever you want to retrieve. So in this function, I'm going to have the latitude, longitude that I retrieved from the other function I created. Then I can break it in latitude and longitude. I need, probably I do not need, let's see what else I need. As I go through, I'll check. So latitude and longitude will be pretty much the return from this function, passing the address, which is an argument from this one as well. Now it returns latitude, comma, longitude. So I want to split it. Can use this VB script function split to get this value using comma as the delimiter. And it automatically creates an array with two positions, position 0 for the first element and position 1 for the second element. So the latitude is going to be this array, position 0, and the longitude is going to be this array, position 1. So now I have the latitude and longitude in different variables. Now I have to pass the URL. So I have in this button here the URL from the website. And copy and paste and declare the variable URL here. However, in this URL, some values here, like the longitude and the latitude, should not be hard-coded as they are right now. So I remove this one and concatenate the longitude here, and I remove this hard-coded latitude and replace it with the latitude value. So I'm calling the same URL, but the latitude and longitude are variables now. So I can create here a node path, which is going to be, let's see, for the values that you want is always data, method, and then the name of the variable. So the node path is going to be data, matter, and variable name that you pass as an argument of the function. And finally, you can have here this function. The return of this function is sorry, the return from the URL with this node path. Let's check if I did something wrong. Not yet. And let's test this function here. So I go to the screen. And I can create those variables, address and variable name. And let's set values here to test. So address will be 78759, my zip code. Variable name will be temp C. Then I get the result here in this variable, and I message box this variable. Save it. I click on the button. 6.4 in for 78759. 78759. Which is probably the temperature in Austin now in Celsius. I can go to google.com, temperature now in Austin. If I show in Celsius, 6.9, the web service is probably more accurate than here. So, and obviously stations are in different places, but this is about the correct value, is whatever value the web server is returning to us. So now I can be more generic, less generic, like temperature C, and the other one is dew point. I think it's dew point. Let's see here. Go back. The other one is dew point C. Temperature C, dew point C, and then I can say this one is the temperature C. And now this variable dew point C receives this one. And I want to show ret is equal to temp C. Carry return line feed goes one line and dew point C. So temperature in the first line, dew point in the second line. I click here. This one. Remove this button and save. And it's not returning the values. So let's see why not. Temp C. To here. Message box, temp C. Save it. 7. So good up to here. Now variable name is equal to this. Same guy with the same address. Can have a message box to show this guy. Save it. 6.7 and 6 is the dew point, which is about right for a high humidity we have here in Austin. So the last message box is not there. Let's see, I have temp C and dew point. Let's have here. Oh, I didn't declare the B can return line feed. I didn't declare the variable ret. So I see here 6.7, 6.0, and both one in each line. So I'm returning the temperature C and the dew point, not for this latitude and longitude, but for the latitude and longitude that I'm passing, which is Austin. Now let's create a very simple interface, which is probably what you want in your application. So you want to pass the address, and based on the address, you want to click in a button, like for instance, get, and then you want to see the temperature. You want to see the temperature. You want to see the dew point. And you want to see the humidity, relative humidity. Right? Let's see. Doesn't look like there is humidity here, but we can calculate it from the dew point in a rough way, very, very rough way, just for sake of time. So let's create some tags here to manipulate this data. I'll go to classes, create a class CW for weather, and I'll have address, temp, dew point, and relative humidity. This is a string, this is a real, this is a real, this is a real, or if I just want approximated, well, could be real. And here I create weather from the class CWeather. So here I have weather.address. And here in this button, I have something very similar to this one. Copy and paste. But the difference here, I will have weather temperature. Don't need a message box. Here I will have weather dew point. I don't need message boxes. And based on the dew point in a very, very rough way, I can calculate the humidity as 100 minus 5 times the temperature minus the dew point, as I did in a recent project. So I have those three values here. So I can just display them in those three boxes. So the temperature here, the dew point here, and the relative humidity here. Let's save it. Let's go there and have 78759 get. And you have here the values for this website. If I go to New York, let's try Houston, Texas. Houston is about the same as in Austin. I come here. Oh no, there is a mismatch. So let's go to 78729, a different zip code. No, there is still a mismatch here. And object 4, variable name. Let's remove this calculation for now. This one is good. 7, 7, 7. So let's put some traces here to find out where the problem is. Message box. This guy. Message box. This guy. And to make sure I'm not losing it, I reset them before running the script. Oh, I'm hard coding here the address, so not making it right either. So here I need to pass the address and the address. Let's try again. Get 7, 7. Good. If I go to Houston, Texas, 9.9, 8.5, which are different. So good. We are good. I can delete those values, and let's see if the calculation is working properly as well. So 5 times. 9.9, 8.5, 93%, which is about right. and I can remove the message boxes. So there you go. This is pretty much the interface you're looking for. You pass any address. Let's try New York. And it returns the temperature, the dew point, and the humidity. And of course, you can go to different variables, but you can use pretty much the generic functions and the examples here in this test to retrieve information from any web service. Took a while, but I think this is a very common question. Many people want to retrieve information, weather information, or any other information from web services. And with those small functions here, they pretty much fit one screen, the monitor. You can achieve it. And once you have the functions, it's very easy to just keep passing variables like the address, the information you want, and get the results. Let's try Paris, France. I see that in Paris is a little bit hotter and much drier than in Texas. So let's see if there are, hopefully this question has been answered. Let's see if there are other questions. One question is, will the code be available after the webcast? Yes, the video will be available on the website. I can make a text version of this code available on the website and even an example application. And you can always contact us, send an email to support@indusoft.com or directly to me. I can write here my email, fabio.terezinho@schneider-electric.com, and I'll be happy to share this example or other examples with you. But after the webinar, I'll make sure we post these simple functions on the website along with the video as well, so you can simply copy and paste into your project. So one point here is, I think you swapped the latitude and longitude fields in the URL line 34. Let's see, I passed the longitude and the latitude, and I thought that's what the website was asking for. Yeah, if you see here in the example, and this is the syntax from the web service. The first value is a negative value 1 higher than 90, which means it is a longitude. Longitude is from minus 180 to 180, and latitude is minus 90 to 90. So the fact that the absolute value of this first coordinate is higher than 90, it indicates that it is a longitude, comma, and then the latitude. It is odd. Usually web services or anything requires the latitude and then the longitude, but I noticed here in the URL that this web service swapped them. So that's why I'm passing first the longitude and then the latitude. But thanks for the heads up. But for this particular web service, it is correct the way I passed the coordinates. So the question here is, the trained object can show the cursor value in the legend. How to show the cursor date plus time as well? Good question. In the legend of the trained control, we show values for each one of the points. So if I come here, trained. And it would not be feasible, I would say, to show a column here with the cursor value, because it would be the same with the cursor time, because it would be the same for all the points. It would be just a repeating value for all the points. So if you want to show the cursor date and time, there is a very easy way to do that. So just to show an example, let's create here append second, and I use the tag second. And here in axis, you can go to cursor, and you have here value outputs, like, for instance, cursor date time, for example. You create it as a string tag. Obviously, the tag name could be any tag name you want. And you can display this information anywhere you want. Like, for instance, in this example, I'm going to create a rectangle here. Let me even do this. And in this rectangle, I want to show here the cursor date time. So I save it. And as I move the cursor, you see that it shows here the date and time for the cursor. If I pause here the object, I can move the cursor around, and I show here in this object the date and time for the cursor. So again, very simple. In the trend control, you go to axis, cursor, define a string tag in the value output field, and display this string tag anywhere you want in the screen. Okay, very good. Let's see if we have another question. So, how can I attach a numeric value 0 to 255 for a link symbol property tag to use for security level of internal objects? So, to answer that, first, a very quick review about linked symbols. Linked symbol is pretty much the ability to create objects with animations, define custom properties, add several instances of those objects in your project, and assign different values for the custom properties on each instance. So, for example, I come here to ellipse, and I say I have color here, and I want to change color according to a different tag in each instance. So I want to create here a custom property with the name tag color, and, well, good enough for now. And let's say a command, when I click on this object, I make tag color equal to toggle. I toggle whatever I have in tag color. Then I can create this, I can right click and say create linked symbol with the name my symbol. And now I have the property here, tag color. So let's say tag A, create tag A. And let's come here for this one, tag B, create as an integer tag B. And now I can click here to toggle tag A or tag B. Now the specific question is on the linked symbol. I assume you want to make the security level a custom property. The security level is a numeric only field. It supports only a number. It does not support a custom property. However, fortunately, there is another way for you to configure the security level before executing the command. And that's pretty much using a built-in function called check security level. So you pass the security level you want to check. So let's say, let's call a variable called security. If security level security equals to 1, then I do what I have to do. Could be several lines. Dim security, and you just set this variable security to whatever security level you want to assign to this object. So let's say it is 100. then this function check security 100 will return 1 only if the user logged on the system has 100 in its range. Otherwise, it returns 0 and nothing happens. So this is a way to customize the security level for the objects using custom properties. Going to your particular example, I'll do even better here. I'll create a custom property here called security, by default 0. And now in each one of those objects, I can define a different security level. Let's say 100 for this object here, and I'll leave 0 for the second one. Now I can enable the security system to test. So let's go. Can enable the security system. I already have the group guest. I'll change the level in guest from 0 to 0. I'll create a group admin and leave from 0 to 255. And now in users, I will keep guest from the group guest, and I will add the user admin from the group admin. And finally, I'm going to create a button here to log on. Let's see here, log on. And to have control, I will show here the current username. So the current username is guest. So if I click on this first object, I cannot toggle it because the security level is 100. But the second one, I can because the security level is 0. If I log on as admin, then I should be able to toggle both objects. And if I log off, go back to guest, I cannot toggle the first one anymore, and I still can toggle the second one. So again, the solution for the problem is to use the built-in function check security level on your script. And let's see, one last question. When using the Modbus TCP driver along with the HMI, how can I enable disable communications with the device? For example, I have 48 temperature monitoring devices with static IPs. I want to communicate to all 48 devices. However, I want to disable them at will because not all will be powered up every time. I don't want to delete add devices every time. Excellent. There are different ways to do that, but the easiest way would be using what we call standard driver sheets. So if you come here to the multi-CP driver, and by the way, it is available for any drivers with standard driver sheets, instead of configuring all the addresses here in the main driver sheet, you create at least one different standard driver sheet for each device. So let's say you have the meter number 1 here, and you put here the IP address from the meter number 1, and the addresses, let's say holding registers, and you have here meter, whatever it is, the tags A, B, C for the address 10. You write all the addresses here for the meter number 1, and here in the enable read when idle, you create a variable for example, meter enable. Let's create an array and say this one is index 1. Create an array of 48 elements if you have 48 meters. And save this one as the worksheet number 1. Then I'm going to save as worksheet number 2 and rename here to meter number 2, meter enable 2, the IP address from the meter 2, the tags from the meter 2. And save it, and so on and so forth. So if you see here in meter number 1, I can enable or disable the worksheet from the meter number 1 through this tag meter enable 1. And I can use it on the enable write on tag change if you want to write values to the meter as well. And same thing here for the meter number 2. So literally by writing zeros or ones in those tags, meter enable index 1 to 48, you can enable and disable the communication with each one of the 48 meters dynamically during the runtime, and you don't have to delete add devices every time. Okay? So, not sure if you have more questions. I went through all the questions that have been posted so far. I'll give just a few additional minutes here. But again, this webinar will be posted on the InduSoft website in probably a couple of days. And I will also make the functions I created here for one of the first questions available on the website, so you can easily copy from there and reuse in your project to consume information in XML format from external websites. And with that, again, I want to thank you, all of you, for your time, for your support, not only today, but throughout the whole year. And again, look forward to keep working with you in 2016. Thank you, everybody. I wish you all a great time with your family. And if you have any questions or any comments, as always, feel free to contact us. Thank you, everybody, and a great 2016 to everybody.